This ecosystem is growing in influence, but also growing in size, growing in complexity. And it occurred to us in the entire Department of Defense, whose mission is it to bring that group together? When have these groups ever been together on one stage, in one room? Has not been done. So DEF is doing it, and I think that's awesome. So we are going to do now the first ever State of the Union for innovation. Unfortunately, the State of the Union is delivered by one speaker. This is more like a Democratic primary debate. And we don't have 3 hours. So we're gonna do this rapid fire. It's gonna be a little improvisational. We're gonna do a few different things. And one of the things we're gonna do is PechaKucha, which is gonna be very exciting. It's gonna move very fast. I've never delivered a presentation like this. I'm told that some of the speakers have done it before. Most have not. So it's gonna be something new, and I think that's awesome. So thanks for bearing with us, and thanks for being part of this, and thank you to our 10 representatives who are each bringing a phenomenal, unique perspective. With that, we're gonna go our first one, starting with Defense Digital Service. Megan.
I am not on the list of people who have done this style before, so bear with me, I am your first victim. Megan Furman, I'm the Deputy Director for the Defense Digital Service. Earlier this morning, you heard from Chris Lynch, who was the first director of the Defense Digital Service. He's doing new amazing things. We are still here, and we still need help, and we are still innovating and delivering in the Department of Defense. What we are is a team of highly skilled nerds. Chris talked about the pattern matching. I wear this every day to work, and it does help people find me and understand me and know that when I speak, my words have meaning and value, and I'm a technical expert. I shouldn't have to dress this way, but I do, and it does help, which is a kind of crazy thing to think about. Our technical knowledge and our team is incredibly diverse. When my slide switches, you're gonna see that. We are built from everyone you would expect to find in a startup, and we have done 30 projects. We have done small projects, which we call rogue squadrons, and we have done big ones where we deliver pieces that help folks train in Afghanistan. We are working on a biometric enrollment device that is better than what we've had since 2002, which shockingly is somehow still what people use in the field today. And it is not okay because it makes our troops and our personnel and everyone we work with less safe. Our team is incredibly diverse. We work outside, inside, and we go where the work is. From the designers who help people, who make sure that when we are building projects, we are actually working with users, to me. Well, this is me. I'm sitting at a desk, but that's not actually what our office looks like, despite the Mac. This is here because I needed 20 slides. And in fact, our office has writing all over the walls. We sit on these couches and we have conversations among ourselves, but then also with senior leaders in the Pentagon to help them change their mindsets, to help them understand that when we deliver something in 3 months, that is the first foray and the first salvo, and now we grow on top of it. We have to turn it into something more and bigger and better, and it's not enough to do one small thing. It's all the pieces that you then drive a Mack truck through. That work matters. That's why we're here. That's why we have to fix technology that's been the same since 2002 or 1999, where someone made a decision and 20 years later, we still have that decision and it is a bad one. This is an example of a picture that is in an actual textbook used by the military. The servers are in the cloud or in the mountains, maybe because, right? Like they're in the mountains because the server room is cold. I don't know, the cloud, it's like vaguely raining. Yeah, we need to do better than that. That cannot be what a new cyber soldier sees when they walk into a multi-month training class. Like when that's where you start from, what the fuck? Like that's not gonna get us where we need to go. I'm gonna talk more about that in a minute. But what I wanna start with is something like this. Where we are breaking down barriers and we're asking people to think in a different way. Sometimes that starts with a whiteboard. Sometimes that starts by going out to Afghanistan. Other times it means, asking people to participate in a way that they're not used to. Looking for the most junior person in the room and asking for their opinion, which is something that does not happen a lot in the military or the Department of Defense in general. Hack the Pentagon is something that Chris talked a lot about. It's an incredible program where DDS was part of saying, you know, when you're on the metro and there are all those signs, they're like, see something, say something. Well, for the Department of Defense, if you saw something and said something on a website about a vulnerability, you could go to jail, and that is ridiculous. So the guy on the left, yeah, that's my left, your right, that is a young hacker named Jack Cable, and he found vulnerabilities through a Hack the Pentagon program. Today, that program has grown at DEF CON this year. We were able to do a live hack of a weapon system and reach out to the ethical hacker community, the ethical researcher community, and this is an example of where we started small. We got people comfortable with the concept of a bug bounty, and we drove a Mac truck through it. So now next year, there was going to be Hack the Satellite at DEF CON, where working with the Air Force, we're going to hack a satellite in real time, and the goal will be to turn it to look at the moon and take a picture, because we have to do moonshots, otherwise we're not gonna beat all of our near-peer adversaries. So I started with that picture of servers in the mountain and the cloud raining. DDS has been part of redesigning the 17 Charlie curriculum. So that is new cyber soldiers who show up and are going to be our cyber operators for hopefully what is a long and valuable career. So we were able to turn that class from something that was, you know, like, let me just foot stomp the points. If you're in the military, you know what I'm talking about. That is not applied learning. So we were able to take what people know is effective from code academies and bring that to the military. And those guys who were our first class, actually our second class of Digital Dojo, just won a major capture the flag competition. They went from, I'm not gonna say zero because people do a lot on their own, but they went from new to really effective very well. At the end of the day, changes are made by those who show up, the people in this room going out, spreading our insurgency and our rebellion and asking people to do better and not to accept that, like, we're in a, like, ocean of internet. That's not valuable, right? So we go where the work is. This is our team, one of our teams, the one that's actually working on the biometric enrollment device, making it better than what we've had since 2002. This is a team of mixed military, civilians, different backgrounds, different genders who went out to Afghanistan to go work with the users, to understand what they're doing, to actually give them something on a cell phone, because as it turns out, people are using cell phones all the time. So we can, and those cell phones have more storage than, you know, hardware from 2002, as I'm sure you'd be shocked to learn. And so that team is out there building, delivering, and trying to make a difference. So if you're interested, DDS is still here, dds.mil/#join. Come and help us make this place better and push the boundaries and throw some rocks and see what happens.
Good morning. I'm David Stuckenberg. I'm representing NATO Innovation Hub and our disruptors, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you in the company of such amazing and incredible minds. NATO's realized that the challenges that we're up against are in the extreme. It's going to take a chorus, a true cast of thousands to bring together all the elements that are needed to solve the challenges of our age. And while some of these challenges may be things we're used to and maybe we've thought about in science fiction, perhaps some like we've even seen in movies, many of the realities that we once just thought of in our imaginations are actually coming to fruition. These things are building on each other. And while it may not look like this, there are literally hundreds and thousands of challenges that are not just becoming technical, but they're becoming global. And so the NATO Allied Command transformation is designed with the transformation of NATO as a body so that it can adapt to the challenges that we face as a world. And as the combinations of things begin to fuse together and mutate and take place outside of what might be our situational awareness bubble, we have to be thinking of the things that maybe we hadn't thought about and in the way that they connect to other things. So in 2018, NATO Supreme Allied Command Transformation and the Chiefs of Transformation representing each of the 29 NATO nations and our Partnership for Peace membership brought together the chiefs of transformation in a conclave, and they said, well, look, we've got to get through old thinking, so how do we begin to do that? Obviously, we have the NATO Innovation Hub, which is like an AFWERX or like a DEF2019, who is there building ecosystems to try to change technology, but also we need to bring young disruptors in. And so they brought in disruptors, young people under 40, and they said, okay, let's have them throw a rock. So, but our world is going through transformations that are absolutely observable. This is a change in water from space. And the previous slide was a look at the top 5 global economic challenges, and you could have seen, if you'd look back, that one of those that replaced oil in the top 5 was water. And water is a very thirsty business, irrigation is a thirsty business, and water is beginning to impact defense on a scale that maybe is unprecedented. And it's not just out on the panhandle and in the plains where we would think, but the way in which we irrigate, we use water in our day-to-day life all around the world, it's simply on an unsustainable path. But it's beginning to converge, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about that convergence, but I'm also going to talk about how the nature of warfare is changing and how the two are beginning to blend. And this is actually a water map in Kansas showing the exhaustion of some of the aquifers. And this is from the gray satellite imagery, and you can actually see that the gravity having to do with the water and the exhaustion of the aquifers is changing. So as these things begin to converge with the way that we do business, we have to make changes. And so in Norfolk, for instance, 50 days of land flooding or forecast for inundation in 2020. And while we would think this to be somewhat intuitive in terms of littoral areas or areas adjacent to the ocean, this is also taking place inland. And so all of the environmental changes are happening worldwide, and we see the wetter areas getting wetter and the drier areas getting dry. And here's Offutt Air Force Base on the Great Plains, and if you look up in the top corner, that's the National Airborne Operations Center, the NAOC, the alternate Pentagon, and it's kind of socked in there a little bit. So, these are things we have to begin taking seriously and understand that as disruptors, our challenge is not only to solve the small problems, but the big problems as well. Obviously Las Vegas and the Nellis Training and Test Range, Nellis Air Force Base, where the supply is not inexhaustible. But adversaries have always used precious resources and ways to fight, and this organization, NATO, and even the Department of Defense, has always fought in a manner that we're all used to, and that is you come up to an event and then you dissipate into peacetime operations. But this paradigm is being exploded, and our adversaries have figured out how to hack our system. And this is not new, okay? Adversaries have always sought offsets and a way to work around great defensive systems. Here was, of course, the Maginot Line, which was built by France. And of course, this was the most sophisticated bulwark of fortifications ever designed at the time, and in fact had pressurized systems to keep gas from coming into the system so that they could keep folks safe. So NATO has always fought in a way that is somewhat predictable. Adversaries would often present a challenge X, and we would respond with a very short time delta and Y, and we were biased toward action. And that action was called, it really kept folks from acting, and it deterred. But now the enemy is able to inject unknowns into the system, and it's kind of like feeding pie into a computer. And if you do that under the right programming, it'll just sit there and spin, right? So now the reality we've come from in terms of our spectrum of conflict is such that it can be disrupted rapidly. And what I would tell you is that the option is essentially for an adversary to not only constantly aggress us in a way that bleeds us, but to jump to warfare in a way that could present checkmate. And so what we are fighting is a supplanting strategy, and this is called the cordyceps, and this is a small spore that oftentimes will float along on the wind and nestle itself into the host and begin releasing a toxin so that it actually begins to control the behavior of the host. And so we have to be careful about those kinds of insurgencies. And so as a network that is expanding into a cast of thousands within 70 countries and more than 3,000 right now, the NATO Innovation Hub welcomes you to join. There's more information available online, and I'm happy to talk to you afterward. Thank you.
morning. My name's Beth Sweet, and I'm from the Defense Innovation Unit, and we are a very unique organization within the DoD. We're the only organization that focuses exclusively on dual-use commercial technology and bringing that commercial technology into the DoD at an accelerated pace. And not only that, building the National Security Innovation Base, which really means new vendors. We were established in 2015 by then Secretary of Defense Ash Carter to reinvigorate this triad of industry, commercial, and academia in the Silicon Valley, where at that time that was really the birth of the Silicon Valley, and to recreate the energy and the ideas and the new technology. In this time of near-peer competitors, we really need to figure out ways to get the technologies to our warfighters at the point of need. And we realize that in the modernization of these priorities, that the commercial technologies actually exist already to modernize our force. We're cutting through all of the additional paperwork that's needed. Right now, to get anything on acquisition for these new innovation companies or new techs or startups is extremely burdensome. We're cutting through that, and we offer new ways to get to the Department of Defense by offering we offer problem statements instead of requirements, and really be able to talk to our folks out there, new vendors. We work cross-platform, trying to do transformative projects across platforms, across services, really to save time, to save lives, save money, and to increase actual capabilities within the Department of Defense. We're bringing in new vendors that otherwise would not have been working with the Department of Defense. Either they didn't know how, it's too complicated and too costly. We worked with these vendors to really create an opportunity for them to work with us that didn't exist before. So Defense Innovation Unit, our value really is in leveraging that research and development that is invested by commercial technologies. The DoD cannot keep up with that, and it can't keep up with the advancements that are happening. We can't chase tech. Instead, we're going to leverage that wave that commercial already has going on. We bring our problem statements to industry and to small startup instead of them coming to us. We're not asking them to come to DoD. We go out we're currently in Silicon Valley, in Washington, D.C., Boston, and Austin. And we really represent that bridge from what the DoD needs and what the vendors have to offer. We're really after happy vendors. We're trying to do a business at commercial speed and at commercial terms, addressing some of these very critical items that are important to our vendors, and that is intellectual property and retention of being able to actually be viable after your DoD experience, keeping that commercial venue. Also, we offer a very unique way to get from problem to prototype to production at scale, and then finally fielding. So it's critical for the speed, as we heard before, and the agility to do that. We're bringing in new companies that have new ideas that have never thought about Department of Defense problems, and they bring these new unconstrained ideas and solutions. And we're really after those companies that think in different ways. So we focus on 5 different portfolios. The technology is wide. National Defense Strategy outlines 5 areas that defense is lagging behind industry. Artificial intelligence is one of them. We're going to leverage the machine learning advances for things like predictive maintenance and automated refueling. Autonomy is another of our portfolio. We're looking for less costly, more interesting new ideas in this domain. And we're also looking for companies that are just really in getting introduced to the DoD. They're really working in the commercial industries at present. In our space portfolio, we're looking for quick, rapid launch, responsive launch, and resiliency in space. This is one of our biggest portfolios. And one of the ones that are really the most challenging for us when we're dealing with big companies and big system integrators. We also have partnership programs where we can bring those smaller companies and work with the big integrators and still play. In our human systems, we're looking for combat lethality, increases in combat lethality, combat survivability, and really optimizing that human performance. Here you see the medical monitoring, so that's part of what we're doing as well. For cyber, we're looking for a transformative cyber, not just your cyber security, but really trying to acquire new ways and understand new approaches for looking at the problem writ large and expanding our purview and really getting those different ideas out from industry and from new folks. So our work is just about as change, culture change, as it is about technology. Having DoD think differently about how they think about innovation, what they call innovation, how they discover innovations, and how they implement their programs. We do process changes just as well as we do technology. We look at the whole ecosystem from concept to prototyping to actually fielding. And by this, we're looking at the concept phase, integrating the national labs, doing hackathons, all the way to investing in capital in hardware companies to ensure our supply of hardware that we need. Transition is our driver. We need to get these technologies to the hands of our warfighter, our men and women in uniform. That's one of those main things that we're going to focus on this next year, and we drive towards that. And that's just bringing those things in viable ways to the warfighter. And finally, the vision that we're really actualizing right now is to allow our warfighters to fight that dynamic battlefield of the future. That dynamic and changing battlefield of the future, using commercial technologies and leveraging all of the work and ideas and new ideas coming in. So diu.mil, very easy. Any questions, please feel free to talk to me. And thank you for having us.
Hello? Okay, it's working. So I don't think anybody has actually told you what PechaKucha means. This format is where the slides change every 20 seconds, whether you want it or not. So there's like a unique amount of pressure on the speaker to know exactly what's going on. Anyway, I'm at the JAIC. We are the DoD Joint AI Center. We are a brand spanking new organization in the Department of Defense. We just got money and people in February of 2019, and our mission is to accelerate the adoption of artificial intelligence into the Department of Defense. That is a tall order, but it matters. The Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, said that he believes AI is his #1 technology modernization priority because whoever masters it will dominate the battlefield for many, many years. Those are the stakes, and fortunately, they are understood by the highest levels of the Department of Defense, and they have our back, and they recognize the importance of getting this mission right. Now, I want to start by saying, what is AI? Not because I think you people don't know it. I suspect there are many people in there who know it a lot better than I do. But because I want to help you explain it to other people so that all of my meetings don't have to be explaining what is AI from now on. So if you could just help me help them, you'll make it better for all of us in the future. So the best way to explain AI is to distinguish it from traditional software programming. This is what it looks like. You have an input. You have a program that human hands wrote. You give it access to computation, and it spits out your results. This is how software works. This is how software has always worked. And the knowledge of the system is that program that was typed in by human hands. Machine learning and artificial intelligence is different. You start with input data and examples of a desired result. This is a face. This is the labeling, the points on the face. Give that access to computation, and what comes out is the program. So instead of human hands typing out the program is generated by applying the algorithm to a training data set. Why does that matter, and why does that matter right now? Because artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, but it couldn't do very much. The performance of these systems was relatively low because they lacked access to large data sets to use for training, large amounts of computational resources in order to deliver results, and there weren't enough open source code libraries, so anybody who wanted to do this had to either be a genius or be surrounded by 20 other geniuses. What has changed is across all of those three dimensions. Because of the internet and because of digital sensors, there's massive data everywhere. Because of the cloud and the growth in processing power, there's more computing resources, and there's a lot of people who have open source code libraries to develop AI. So suddenly, this stuff is powerful and it's practical. Why does that matter from a Department of Defense standpoint? Why should any of you care about this? You're probably hearing about AI all of the time, but the reality is that those trends that I just talked about are going to drive an important change in the Department of Defense ecosystem. The specific things are things that used to be impossible are now possible. Think about what Hollywood computer graphic faces looked like 10 to 15 years ago. Even if they spent $100 million, it still looked fake. But suddenly you can make really realistic looking stuff for like $10 on your personal computer. Stuff that used to be expensive is now affordable. A cruise missile is routinely $1 million. A drone with a grenade is like $1,000. So capabilities that used to be restricted to those who are rich and technologically sophisticated are suddenly ubiquitous. AI is the new electricity. The point that I want to get here is, one, how many different things is this likely to change? Electricity didn't just change the electricity industry, it changed every industry. And how large was the scale of that transformation? It was massive. So we at the Joint AI Center, we believe that artificial intelligence has implications across the full spectrum of DoD activities. That's from the most backwatery of back office to the tip of the spear in all of our operations. Across robotics and autonomous systems, intelligence and surveillance, and cyber, there are AI implications in every single one of these domains. And we want to seize upon that opportunity, and we want to empower our warfighters to use these advanced technologies because we know our strategic competitors are also moving out quite quickly. So what is in the way of this transformation? Unfortunately, some pretty big obstacles. Data. I told you that training data is the fuel for modern machine learning algorithms, but who has access to that data? Have they been managing it well? And is it ready to be used in a machine learning algorithm? That's a tall order. Culture. People don't know that they should be paying attention to their data sets and treating these as precious assets. And then talent. There's only a few, tens or hundreds of thousands of machine learning, high-quality machine learning engineers on Earth. What percentage of them do you think have active top-secret security clearances? Not enough. Which brings us to the question, what are you all going to do about it? We see this incredible opportunity, we see this incredible, powerful tool, and what are we going to do to make sure that it's available to our warfighters who have the missions that they need to get done? Well, fortunately, the Department of Defense and the US government has said, we're going to do a lot about this. It starts with the National Defense Strategy in 2018. It says explicitly that we are going to pursue the use of AI for competitive military advantages. So now I've got my top cover. On top of that, the White House Executive Order in 2019, that wasn't 20 seconds, I know for a fact. Anyway, we have a DoD AI. We have a DoD AI strategy. It's got 5 major pillars. I think all of them are really exactly where we need to go. We're young. My organization, as I said, really just got going in February. This is an incredible mission for any organization. We're growing like weeds. We need great people. I hope you're willing to help. Also, this is our new sort of graphic style, which we literally just implemented yesterday, and I hope you all like it because I invested a lot of personal time in getting it right. But that is to say, I hope you all consider, coming to join the JAIC. We have an exciting portfolio of projects underway. These are just the ones that are going on right now: predictive maintenance, humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, cyber, maneuver and fires, intelligent business automation, and warfighter health. In every single one of these areas, we see an opportunity to make a massive impact. I want to drill down on our humanitarian assistance in the disaster relief project. This is our current version of an AI model that is flying a drone over an active wildfire, and it is analyzing the full motion video coming off that drone to say, this part has an active wildfire, this part is not burning. And then that data can be offloaded into a geo-registration application. So an active National Guardsman can look at their mobile phone and be like, this is where the fire is, this is where it's going, here's what I need to do today. It's a lot faster than the system it's going to replace. And underpinning all of this is our Joint Common Foundation. This is the system, the AI platform that we're looking to do not just for our projects, but for projects across all of the DoD. How do we bring modern DevSecOps practices to ML development systems, not just for our own programs, but for programs everywhere in the DoD. We're trying to make it happen. We hope you can make it help. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Katie, and I work in the intelligence community. Wow, that's really weird to say in public to an audience. we're here, we're talking about innovation. You're probably thinking about things like failing fast and being creative and being nimble. And you're imagining a work environment that looks a little bit like my next slide. Nice. Yeah, you know, the mobile devices, the dog, probably like a Star Wars t-shirt or a hoodie or something. This is not us, clearly. I mean, look at the security violations. We have mobile phones and a skiff, a laptop, and that looks like a Lenovo, probably not. A dog? No, that would never happen. So we're gonna switch to the next slide because this is kind of stressing me out. Oh, there we go. Oh boy, this is fun. All right, calm, take a deep breath. But the thing is, we know we need to be innovative, and we know that does mean failing quickly, failing safely, even though when we do fail, it can mean the loss of taxpayer dollars, putting our nation's security at risk, or maybe even human lives. I mean, the good thing is the intelligence community is innovative. We have to be, we've always been. The challenge is, once we finally get that great idea, and it does work, and it can help mission, and the lawyers have approved it, and security has approved it, we want to use the thing, right? We want to go out and make an impact. We don't want to document it and share it with other agencies. We want to use it for ourselves. Each agency has that motivation, and you know, it's hard to blame them. But the thing is, in this environment we're in right now, you have to run as fast as you can just to stay in one spot. And if you want to go forward, you have to run twice as fast. So to run twice as fast, we have to share information with each other. We have to be more of a community rather than just separate agencies. So that's why my group exists. So we are the Lateral Innovation Division. It's part of the Transformation and Innovation Office at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Barely fits on a business card, people. Our purpose is simply to accelerate innovation across the community. Not invented here, that's awesome. So we're connecting innovators across the community. We've literally made a map of it. This is not that map, don't get too excited. But it's a great way for people to find people by agency, by geographic region, or by function, and then collaborate and see what other people are doing. We also teach classes in design thinking. We help people launch ideas using design sprints, so you can get from a vague notion of a problem to a testable solution in just a couple of days. We teach bureaucratic hacking, we teach storytelling, we teach design thinking all across the community to help people accelerate the pace that they can move forward and really do new things and kick some bureaucratic ass. All right, the thing is, no matter how creative we are and how patriotic we are, we can't do it by ourselves. We have to work with the private sector and academia. And so let's just pause for a moment and really feel all of the feels with this slide. And next, the thing is, we can't do that like putting an ad in the paper, right? Like, hi, we're the IC, these are our problems, here's our org chart and contact info. We don't really do that. You can't swipe right on contracts, so we have to be a little bit more creative. So what are we doing? We are using this program called InStep. It's the Intelligence, Science, and Technology Partnership, where our office has an unclassified request for information on behalf of the whole community, where we give about 20 topics that we all care about. And we say, hey, companies, hey, academia, if you care about these things, so do we. We'd love to meet with you. And then we'll take on the burden of getting the right people in the room and inviting everyone and being that matchmaker. We wanted to make it really easy for people who don't normally work with government, and so we made the application about 10 minutes long, and we succeeded. We got over 180 applications in 10 weeks. So this is one of the people on my team, completely overwhelmed with the success of the program. So we do what innovators do and pivot and figure out how can we ensure that the program's success is not also its downfall. So we talked to users and customers and stakeholders from government and industry to find out what are we really trying to solve and how might we do it. So we are going to pivot the program and start doing Power Days, which are a day-long, totally focused on one topic, extravaganza of bringing together relevant companies from the private sector and the right folks from across the community for a mix of short pitches and more in-depth sidebars, and also educational opportunities on how to work with the government or how to work with contractors. So will it work? Will this be the future of innovation in the intelligence community? We don't know yet, because our first Power Day will take place in the fall. That said, in the year that our division has been around, we have learned some really valuable things. So for example, there will be hop-ons. You can't do it alone, right? It is really much easier if you find someone that's doing something awesome and then join them. Don't insist on, well, we want our name on the top of it. You got to help out. You got to go with the best idea, not whose idea it is. And likewise, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here to meet with all of you. I've already collaborated with many of you, and I hope to collaborate with many more. We're also learning that you need to work with the bureaucracy you have, not necessarily the bureaucracy you want. So I've learned to work with the lawyers all the time, and security, and all of those other fun people. If you move very slowly, you tend to not frighten them, and it goes a little bit better. So, so here's an example of using design sprints. Time-bounded, sprint sounds fast. It's less threatening than we want to do lots of human-centered design, which sounds a little touchy-feely, and we don't have feelings. So how do we do that? Wow, these slides are all over the place, aren't they? Either that or my internal clock is off. In any case, you should be excited like Oprah about all of this, because I'm excited like Oprah about all this. And you get to move forward, and you get to move forward. And there are so many ways to partner with us. I'll share an email address later, probably in 2 seconds. Yep, there we go. But really, we're looking for people to come to our Power Days, to partner with us, to join our team, to be our virtual interns. One of my awesome interns made these slides. And you can find us at innovation@dni.gov. No dead drop necessary. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'm Chubbs. I'm from Naval X, and a lot of you got to hear about that earlier today. So I was asked to come up here and talk about Naval X and our origin story. So at Naval X, we really do design sprints where we bring people together to collaborate. We actually were able to capture the very first Naval X design sprint, and it's been happening for a lot longer than people think. So we brought the first group of people together to tackle a really important problem of how do we actually get the Navy out there working together. So this is the first Naval X design sprint. Okay? We got key stakeholders together. We got them outside of the Pentagon. We put them in a new environment where they could work together. Right? You've got the key stakeholder at the top. You got people that actually know how to solve the problem, rowing the boat. And you have people that can actually go acquire that boat, which in fact they did by just going up the river and stealing this thing. But while they were on that trip, this is where they developed what is the path forward for the Navy. These are the first ships of the US Navy, which they went up to Boston and basically repurposed fishing vessels by putting cannons on top of them and deciding this is the way we go forward and develop the Navy and Marine Corps that we have today. But things have slightly changed over the years. Now we're really focused on these platforms. They're high technology. We're really focused on autonomy. How do we use those scientists and engineers we have to develop these great things and use them forward? But we've lost a piece of that puzzle. The thing that we've been missing are our warfighters and bringing them in throughout the creation of this. Typically, we create these great tools, but when we go for the warfighters, we tell them, hey, stand here on the ship and parade rest, look across the water at industry, academia, and headquarters. We'll build the whole thing for you. Then it'll be ready to bring it over to you when the time is right. So Naval X is looking to try to change that model. Our goal here is to create a platform, a resource where people can go and collaborate together in a non-traditional environment. Here you see a key stakeholder, who you might have seen earlier today, working with some of our junior-most people in the Navy. We even have a Naval Academy midshipman on there, and if you see that, that's the class of 2022, in case anybody wants to feel really, really old. Naval X is just in the background. That's us standing back there, providing the space, some beer, tacos, and then everything going forward. Slides are moving quick, so I'm going to tell you, this is our way forward. Okay? This is what we see as the future of the Navy. This is actually the America's Cup, the oldest international race in the world. And it no longer looks anything like this. Now, it's like the Navy. It's heavily, heavily focused on really, really high-tech solutions to make things happen. The boats that go out there and compete every 4 years cost tens of millions of dollars. And whoever wins the race gets to decide the rules for the next race. So that was done back in 2013 when Oracle Racing had won the previous race. They got to decide the design specs for the race going forward. What they created is this 80-foot-long monstrosity. It's 130 feet tall. It's one of the fastest sailing vessels ever built. It takes a crew of 11. Despite its size, it weighs less than 7 tons. It can go 55 miles an hour. Okay? They created this thing that went so quickly, no one could actually compete with it. They won the race in 2013 at the cost of $300 million to Oracle founder Larry Ellison. Who's the one lifting this up despite only sitting on the boat for one race, right? He footed the bill, he gets to win the prize. Okay, those are his sailors in the background. Then he gets to decide how we run this race in the future. So the next race in 2017 shrank the boats to 50 feet, shrank the crew to 6 people, heavily relied on technology. But the piece that they missed was who's going to be operating that technology. Because these are some of the most difficult boats in the world to sail. You actually don't even sail them like a traditional boat. They ride out of the water on these foils, as you can see here. So these are some of the US crew members preparing for it. And as you can see, they look more like trained athletes than they do your typical sailor. And down at the feet of this sailor on the right, I want to point out this crank mechanism called a grinder. That's what a traditional sailor uses to create the hydraulics that make everything move, or raise the sails and lower them. They look a lot like our tactical sailors and Marines going forward. We gave them a lot of technology, told them this is the way to go forward, and we're going to put less people in the field to do this. We're also going to say you have to use that technology even if you don't think it's ready to go, such as wearing night vision goggles in the middle of the day. So this is the complex sailboat that they had to go forward. The sail is actually no longer a sail. It's carbon fiber. It's a wing on its end. And you need all of the sailors to keep hydraulic power to keep the boat properly out of the water at all times. To do this, they did what sailors do. Sailors know how to use a grinder. So they do this mechanism right here. 4 of the sailors out of the 6, this is all they did the entire race, was just churn on this grinder. Okay? So in order to do that, how do you adapt your workforce to work in this environment? You burn a lot of energy. You go out there, you find sailors that skip leg day and spend all of their time in the gym cranking like crazy. Hondo talked about wasted calories earlier today. These are wasted calories. They are not sailing. They're just guys with huge arms grinding away in there. But somebody else on the other side of the planet had a different idea. How do we take all this technology that works, think about the people that are actually going to be operating it, and who do you think came up with it? The Kiwis, Gandalf the Grey down here, and the Wizards actually expanded it and said, let's not talk to sailors. Let's talk to people that might know how to do this. And they found a bronze medalist New Zealand cyclist from the 2012 Olympics who said, hey, there's an easier way to do this. Why don't we put them on a bike on there and use leg power, their hands are free, and allow them to actually ride it. And this is actually that bronze medalist cyclist who became a sailor to actually adapt to this. The results are not surprising. The Kiwis ran away, won most of their races by over a minute, which in sailing is about a week. One of the races they won by 2 minutes. They won 7 points in 8 races, which was unprecedented, and went on to victory. So at NavalX, we believe the way to best do this is to focus not on the technology alone, but how you adapt that to your workforce. How do you get sailors and cyclists together to victory? We think if we do that, then we too will have victory, as you see here. Look forward to your questions afterwards. Thanks.
Hi, good morning. All right. So I'm Alexis Bonnell, Chief Innovation Officer at USAID. If you don't know what USAID is, you in essence have DoD hard power. You have Katie representing secret power, and you have me representing soft power. The good news is all power is good. What is unique about USAID is the fact that we actually are able to, and we're looking to solve humanity's greatest challenges around the world, and that's pretty tough. We do that in a couple of different ways, being open, inclusive, evidence-based, agile, flexible. But I want to talk to you about what we tried and managed to do in the last 5 years. So if you talk about being able to get things done in government quickly, you can do it. We've looked at 35,000 ideas. We've funded 1,200 of them. We've leveraged $16 billion from the private sector. We've done 1,600 partnerships. Why do we do this? Because we actually believe that things around the world are able to be changed and to be different. What is also unique about us that you guys should think about leveraging is we can actually fund innovation from anyone, anywhere. 56% of our innovation comes from local solvers, meaning a Kenyan who is dealing with an issue has a solution, someone from Cambodia. And these are just a few of the different things that we funded. What's exciting about that is that that means we get to harness global genius wherever it is and bring it into to our work. We also are looking at doing things in digital and technology. We have brought 43 million people online that were not online in the last 5 years around the world. And when we talk about private sector, we talk about big companies, but we also talk about local social entrepreneurs. What I'm also going to share with you is the fact that this takes a lot of money. We would love it if you bring us your ideas, your dual-use technology, all of the things that matter. And I'm going to tell you not only kind of this is possible in government, but what we funded and what we look for. So this is the ODNI device. Great ideas come from amazing places. Jorge Odon got his idea for the newest breech birth device in the world by trying to get a cork out of a bottle of wine that was in one piece. And in essence, this gentleman was an Argentinian car mechanic. So number one thing I've learned is that people are often not qualified who are the solvers you want, and they often are not the people you'd invite to the party. Very similar to this woman. She is a wedding dress designer. And you would think to yourself, what good would a wedding dress designer do in solving the world's challenges? This woman actually developed for us the most advanced prototype and used now personal protective equipment to respond to Ebola. So her innovation actually debuted at Fashion Week and in the medical response Ebola. It was purchased by DuPont. This is a cell scope. One of the things about innovation we love is the fact that you can take things that already exist, put them together. This actually can read slides and diagnose 80 of the most common diseases in Africa. Sometimes innovation is about behavior. So these are stickers. We put them in Kenya in Matatus, and in our control group in 1 year, traffic accidents went down 75%. Guess who bought them after that? The insurance company. Perfect. We love an exit strategy. And all this was doing was telling people, you have a right to a safe ride. I tried to find something that it looked like a piece of steaming whatever without being that, because I knew these slides might go places. So the reality of this is that innovation is bull unless it's getting used, right? And so, yeah, can really just stop for a moment, okay? We got to use it. So here, we'd actually put this water purification device, and you're actually seeing it in its good form. When we originally put it out, we put it in the middle of where you put all the free stuff, and no one used it, which means they were choosing to get cholera and have diarrhea instead of actually using our innovation. So what did we do? We put it where the water was. Second of all, we had clean cook stoves. No one was using them. We couldn't figure out why. So we finally went to talk to the customer, and it was because it made the food taste different. Well, you don't want to have a different, chana masala. You want to have your mom's chana masala, right? And so it was going about talking about the fuel source, talking about what makes it work. So what's so critical is the fact that innovation can fail if you don't really embrace its use. Finally, innovation can also be low tech. This is a giant African rat. This is one of the most useful and sophisticated and effective ways to find mines around the world right now. This rat also, interestingly enough, can sniff tuberculosis, and is now one of the most rapid ways of being able to see tuberculosis in an environment. Finally, this gentleman is selling a D-light. Sometimes we fund innovation over there, right, for Africa, for Asia. The D-light is now the #1 prepper solar lantern on Amazon, right? So you never know, and it's great. You should buy it. It's awesome. You never know how it's going to work. But let me tell you what we're going to look for. And I know normally we don't have words, but I want you to imagine that, like, when I'm looking to fund something, it's kind of like a relationship, right? We're dating. So these are the things that I look for. Number one, I want to swipe right on Mrs. Evidence. Mr. and Mrs. Evidence, they want to come date me. They're going to tell me how it works, that it has real results. They're going to show me those things. They're going to know those things. So as you can see, that's the innovator. That's what I say. Yay, I swipe right? I'm getting this. Okay, cost effective. Number one, know about competition. I can't tell you how many people come, ask me for money, and I say, wow, that's amazing. You have a solar lantern. Are you aware of the other 600? And they're like, no, but I'm trying to help people. I don't care, right? I need to fund the best thing, the thing that's really going to work. So being aware of their competition. This is the really important one. I love Miss Pathway to Scale. I'm going to swipe right. Why? Because she knows how she's going to dump me, right? I want to be ghosted. I want to be dumped because I want you to have a sustainable path for your innovation to grow outside of my dollars. Finally, I also love Miss Local Solution, right? So I'm going to swipe right on her because what she does is she knows the market. She's there with the customer. She knows the problem. She lives it. She's intimate with it. So when you look for partners, when you look for synergy plays in going after funds and innovation, look for that. Whew. Sorry. Finally, the coachable team. The hardest thing is when you find amazing innovators, incredible leaders who think they know everything, right? And so we'll give them feedback and they just won't take it. They won't adapt. They won't change. they won't kind of hear what's going on. So the number one thing that we know now is that when we have an interaction with someone and they're not coachable, we're going to usually walk away. Finally, this is $22 billion. On any given year, this could be around what USAID spends around the world. So what I want you to think about is the fact that there is a whole global marketplace out there of not only amazing ideas, but of amazing countries that are looking for solutions, and come and get some of that money. Thank you very much.
Hey guys, thanks for taking the time and great presentations. I'm with AppWorks, and our mission is to be a fusion of capabilities that connects innovators and accelerates results for Air Force culture and technology. And you'll see that culture is a huge part of what we're going to cover in this presentation, because it's about the people, and I think you've heard that throughout the day today. So I want to highlight that I'm in the Air Force. I get to come around, walk around in this polo, and it's very nice. But at the end of the day, it's about people inside of the Air Force that are willing to look at something a little bit differently. It's about the Air Force that we build and not accepting that it's the Air Force we joined. And that applies to the DoD as well, right? There's people all over this room that want to make the DoD a better place. So if you want to take a look at AppWorks, the two key things we look at are what is the demand out there from our airmen, and then what is the supply? How do we bring together the right resources to solve the problems that our airmen face on a day-to-day basis? So throughout this presentation, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what AppWorks has accomplished over the last 2 years. We first started out by realizing you can't just go out to the DoD primes. You have to expand the innovation base to this community. It's to the startups. It's to the end users. It's to changing the way AFRL talks to the community. And we also want to talk to the VCs. I know there's some investors in the room. We want to work with your companies and bring them in. So what does our model look like? Our focus is around that airman entrepreneur. Who's that person that's going to raise their hand and say, I want to solve a problem. I want to fix this because I care about it. And making sure we surround them with the resource advocates, a champion, leadership engagement, the right contracting and legal, and also public affairs to tell a story. And then find that commercial partner, because our airmen today are building the plane as they fly it. They're fixing things with duct tape, and that's unacceptable. So how can we bring them with the right resources and tools so that we can be the fastest organization in the world integrating technology into the way that we do business, or products, or service, because that's what's going to win the next war. So around the Air Force, we've inspired airmen to stand up their own Spark cells, which is sort of our base level innovation unit. There's 48 of them. But this was not a mandate saying you have to go here. This was an opportunity for those airmen to stand up and say, I want to fix problems at my own location. You can go on our website and check all those out, and you'll see that they come up with cool names. But the cool thing is that those Spark cells are saying, hey, I want to tackle that frozen middle. And it's not just saying we're going to lift it up and do the work each day, because we're hearing this message from the top, right? The SecDef, the SecAF, the chiefs. Those airmen want to solve these problems. The challenge here is to tackle the frozen middle. You have to build that coalition of the willing. You have to find those people that you need to work with, extend a hand out to those contracting folks, to those legal folks, to the person that has been there for 20 years and say, hey, how can I bring you along? And that's what we have tried to foster a culture of in the Air Force. And one of the key things is that our airmen are not only going to be solving the big, hey, how do I design the next AI system? They want to solve what sucks for them on a day-to-day basis. Because when they can solve the problems that suck, it's that Horizon 1 problem, that's how we're going to generate true change. That Horizon 2, they're like, oh, that's maybe that generational upgrade. And then you look at something like the Helmet Challenge, where we're facilitating how do you go from that generation to generation change. This challenge had 7 years, $10 million, and they got one prototype out of that. What we did by changing the way we communicate those problem sets is a simple graphic that you see here, and we have 3 production prototypes going. And through the challenge process of how we're communicating problems differently that the airmen bring up, these are some of the numbers that we have of the challenges are working and communicating to companies. We're talking to them in a simple and different way. And that's because the airmen have brought up problems, and now we're able to share them and say, hey, it's just about a simple change to a system. And how do we get that information? We have an ideation platform internal to the Air Force. We have over 20,000 users in that platform. We have over 3,000 ideas that we've connected from these airmen, and that have turned into 300 projects. Why only 300? Sorry, 400 projects now. The number keeps growing every day. Why does that 400 projects matter? Because it's the airman that says, I want to raise my hand, I want to keep working through this. They're willing to work through this bureaucracy. They're willing to tackle the cultural challenges that they see out there on a day-to-day basis. And we have to call them out. We have to be very blatant, like, hey, are you willing to work through this barrier with us? So you'll see in this picture, in order to get people bought in, we're inviting folks from all over the Air Force to work with us. This is a room full of contracting officers that in order to make those projects happen, that culture change, they were all brought into a room together so that they could better understand what OTAs were, to understand how to work on contracts. And one of the biggest successes we have at AppWorks is being able to connect those airmen innovators to to companies out in the commercial world. So you'll see up here some numbers we have that over the last 2 years we've awarded over $220 million to over 600 companies to solve airmen problem sets. There's over 191 of those that are in active prototyping around the Air Force today, and there's an open call for all of you. If you want to solve a problem with the Air Force, it's open to any small business, and the phase 1 is $50,000 for customer discovery. Phase 2 is from $500,000 to $1.5 million, and then for any of the investors in the room, we're offering a 1-to-1 match for private investing. For any government folks in the room, we'll give you 2-to-1 match. If you bring in $200,000, we'll give you 4. And I also want to highlight there's a strategic match going on with no limit. So we're not only playing in small dollars, there's a 1-to-1 to 2 opportunity out there with 10, 20, 50, $100 million match from the government to work with you. So AppWorks is focused on the supply and demand. I tried to cover a lot about all the things AppWorks is doing here over the last couple of years. And our job is to help change the culture of the Air Force, to build that virtuous insurgency, that coalition of the willing, by giving airmen the tools they need to be successful. So we ask, how can you be a part of this? Check out our website, join the virtuous insurgency on our side, apply to be a part of the SBIRS CTR program. You can also, if you're an airman or you want any part of the DoD, you're welcome to submit those need statements to us, and we'll find those partner companies to work with you. And then start a Spark Cell, engage with us. So thank you guys for taking the time.
All right. So this is Senior Airman Chelsea Whitworth. In 2008, she worked at the 607th AOC in Korea. Her job was to take data out of an old legacy system, put it in Microsoft Excel, and format the columns. And format the columns, and format the columns is her entire job. So let's fast forward 11 years. Now Lieutenant Chelsea Whitworth is a product lead at Kessel Run. She went on a user research trip to the 607th AOC, and she found a senior airman there whose job was in the same seat to grab data out of the same legacy system, put it in Microsoft Excel, and format the columns, right? We spent 11 years of airmen's mental energy and time in doing jobs that software should have solved a long time ago because we can't figure software out. And these problems are around the DoD everywhere we go, everywhere we look. At Kessel Run, our goal is to change the future of air warfare. We want to deliver continuous air power, but we can't do that until we provide software that works and we allow our people to do their jobs and provide software that do their jobs. So we need to figure out how to incrementally get to this grand vision of continuous air power. We need to find our red envelope. When Netflix started sending out these red envelopes, their big vision wasn't to provide the greatest shipping or envelope shipping company in the world. It was an incremental step towards a larger vision that they were trying to get to. So when we're trying to get to this vision of continuous air power, we needed to find our incremental step to get there. We needed to find our internal red envelope, and we found it in this process, the process that Air Force is used for in-air refueling. That's a video, which was pretend those people are moving. Okay. It's a crazy process. One of the coolest things the Air Force does, 2 planes up in the air, precise planning. There goes super fast, super high in the air. It takes a lot of time and energy to make sure that we got this process right. We got to make sure all the hardware is correct, the planes are in the right spot. And we did it up until 2 years ago in this manual process you see on this whiteboard. You had one guy up on a whiteboard. He was moving pucks around. He was kind of beautiful minding it. Yelling it across the room, the data that needs to be hand jammed into another old system of record. Meanwhile, these are 3 pilots doing this job who were yanked out of their jets during a massive Air Force pilot shortage to do data entry. During a visit to the KAOC, Eric Schmidt at the time walked around, saw this process, and said, "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen." We found our red envelope, and we were going to try to solve this process first. And we did that by taking active duty airmen, sending them into San Francisco in industry, and they try to help us learn how to build products and how to build things that are going to help them save time and help us grow our organization. This is the first iteration of Jigsaw. This iteration itself helped us keep one tanker aircraft on the ground on average every single day. After a year and 30 iterations, it was 2. We're saving $12 million a year in fuel savings alone just by providing this software.
Kessel Run to teach active duty Air Force personnel how to code.
They named themselves Kessel Run, by the way, and I had to Google it to find out why.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon? Should I have? It's a ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs.
This is where Kessel Run started going really fast or really far, depending on your definition of a parsec. We opened up our Boston lab in downtown Boston here. We took our folks off base, out of the bureaucracy, gave them a place where they could be creative and ideate and have our island of innovation to really move the needle on how to be product people and grow an organization that could build the right culture to be able to really move the needle. Yesterday, I did a talk called Beyond the Software Factory. We talked about all the challenges we started getting into with this rapid growth, things around testing and security and all the bureaucratic hurdles that we had to solve, that we had to make sure that we were getting our users' trust back as an acquisitions community because we had lost it for decades of non-delivery. So as we move forward, Kesselrun as an entity has over 36 products that we built organically, things from AOC modernization to F-35 logistics maintenance. We also delivered a worldwide hybrid cloud platform that allows 8 external organizations to deliver capabilities out into the field. And this is really important because we want to get to a world where our users trust Kessel Run. When they go out into the field and into the fight, they put Kessel Run as a capability provider in their back pocket the same way they bring their M4 and their NVGs. We want them to trust us to go help deliver capability they need into the field. We think continuous delivery is a weapon, and if we're able to yield it in the right way, it can be the most lethal weapon that we have in government. And we do this, we didn't contract this out. This is organic government-led development. We have active duty airmen with civilians and great industry partners who are partnering together to deliver this capability. And we do this every single day in our lab in Boston and at various places around the country right now. So you can see here 32 organic development teams right now. The important things for me are we're averaging 124 days on average from the first time we get into a room and ideate on an idea and getting that software into the field, into production in users' hands. And with that, we deploy and update those applications on average of every 9 days right now, which works out to us changing the way the world works every 11 hours. We talked yesterday about the software delivery performance metrics and how being an efficient IT organization drives change. Right here, Kesselrun as a whole is sitting in the medium to high IT performance compared to industry, and we think we're going to move that deployment frequency number to the left in this quarter, and we'd be able to be considered a high efficiency IT organization even compared to industry. We do this all while maintaining an idea of psychological safety within our culture. We want to make sure our people like where they work every single day, so we focus on having a badgeless environment, a uniformless environment, and we drive decision making down to where context lives so people can feel free to ideate and be creative. We also provide opportunities for airmen to get real, modern, relevant skills where they can go out and leave Kessel Run to go work at places like Atlassian, Amazon, Microsoft, and also go to other organizations within the Air Force to learn how to do this and keep it up if they want to continue to do that mission. Now, yesterday, Knudsen told us to make sure that we're giving back to community. So I'm giving back to all my fellow speakers by having a protest slide to talk about how much I hate this format. So we're going to sit in silent protest for the rest of this slide. All right, so last slide, Kessel Run is hiring. We have an awesome group of people delivering product into the field every single day. Really talented, they're really great. And go to kesselrun.af.mil, and these are the jobs that you're looking for. Thanks.
Follow that. All right. Put beards in the back, apparently. All right, so I'm Dave Nobles, and this is TANG. It's actually a delicious orange drink, right? And I just kind of turning towards the torpedo here, because whenever we go in and brief anybody, they're like, oh yeah, orange drink, we know you guys. This is Tang, but it's not us, it's not what we do. We do a whole lot of design and systems thinking across DoD sponsors, and I'll talk a little bit more about that after some more of the Tangs, right? So this is Tang 2. This is USS Tang, and that's our man Dick O'Kane there, who believed that ideas could come from anywhere. Sank a whole lot of tonnage in World War II. It's pretty inspiring to us, and that's Tang, but that's also not exactly us. We just try to carry that forward with everything that we do in the work that we do every day. 20 seconds is not what I thought it was. All right, so this is Tang. This is actually one of our large workshops, and a lot of people think that this is what Tang is, and and this is what design thinking is, but we're about a whole lot more than that. We know if we stop at just a post-it, then we're doing innovation theater, and we're kind of doing more harm than good. So we focus a lot on that downstream delivery. I love the idea of delivery as a superpower. We'll talk about our superpower, because I think that our superpower is empathy. We're a diverse team of problem solvers. We love problems. The gnarlier, the better. We love process. We think that we can decompose the process and do thoughtful design of the elements within the problem-solving system to make better impact in the folks that we're helping out. And at our core, the things that connect our team are those three traits. We want to be really authentic and connect with people in a really meaningful way. We're relentlessly curious. We like to poke around and find a lot of different answers, maybe glean some insights from some challenges that smell the same but taste different. And then we like to come at it from a place of humility and not act like we know the answers, because most often we don't. At best, we're golden retrievers. At worst, we're Mexican hairlesses or something like that. So we've learned some things along the way. The first of those, and I'll share 6 of them with you guys. The first of them is respecting the complexity of each challenge, because we know that if somebody's going to come to us in the first place, they're stuck in the mud in some way, right? So we have to kind of go beyond and start thinking about all the different dimensions of the challenges. And that's what we did with NavAir. We were working to help kind of design and change the paradigm of what mission planning systems are for that community, right? A lot of people thought it was just typing a bunch of stuff into a calculator and taking a thing to the aircraft and making it go worky, but it's a lot different, right? I mean, it's about in-flight, it's about post-flight, it's about pre-flight, all that mission planning system. So we helped redefine that paradigm into their new mission planning systems of the future. We spend a lot of time in discovery, seeking the right questions, not shoehorning solutions in there, just trying to find a way to make that work. And we know that most of the challenges that we get are about 3 challenges. They're about the challenge actual. They're usually about some kind of organizational culture challenge, and then I like to throw a little like a shadow how might we in there, like how are we going to hack the process to try to figure out a cool way to deliver. So we asked a lot of questions when we helped out the Surface Navy's Top Gun organization to try to understand how to measure tactical competency, because it turns out they don't have a way to do that, so we're like moneyballing the Surface Navy, right? So we talked to Major League Baseball, which is cool. And it's about more than data. It's about humans, too. It's about coaching. It's about all those different things and how we make these people better. So we wanted to kind of bring both of those questions to bear. We know that inspiration can come from anywhere. And that's why we like to invite warfighters to the design table. Back when we started in 2011 with IDEO, that was not being done in a really meaningful way. But we like to bring them with the other folks who are from those other industries that have some similar experiences and can talk to the space. When we worked with Surfland to reimagine what sailor toughness means for a 21st century Navy, which sounds like a crazy project, we went out and talked to NFL players. We talked to NASA astronauts. We talked to firefighters who ran back into the buildings on 9/11 to figure out how they thought of toughness. And then we brought those cats back and had them brainstorming right alongside the sailors and solving some challenges. And I mean, it's some really heavy stuff, but we know that problems this hard can't be solved alone. So we try to find T-shaped people and try to cram together T-shaped people. Depth of experience in one thing, authentic appreciation for a whole lot of other things, and a keen ability to connect the dots between them to try to find these answers. That's what we did for Future Vertical Lift. We're helping the Marine Corps kind of reimagine what the cockpit experience ought to look like for the tilt rotor aircraft that's going to fly in 2035. So we brought pilots who could leave the pilot baggage at the door because they know what works. And then we brought some technologists who knows what's possible, right? And we shoved them into a room, had them dressed up. That's DAF right there. He's one of our sponsors, but he was, prototyping a haptic suit concept. We got PVC pipe mock pits, and we're trying to really figure out those big ideas. But ideas are the easy part. And we know the discipline delivers impact. And we know we had to kind of stick with them along the way. We worked a project for Integrated Air and Missile Defense for MDA, years ago. And at the workshop, this big, large-scale workshop, foam core, popsicle sticks, glitter, all the good stuff that we all love, and we know it's a lot of fun. We know it's a really small part of the process, but it's very visible, right? We went from a foam core prototype to a rendering, to an appearance model, kind of a vaporware thing to show how this thing might work, to the mission planning table concept in 90 days. And now we're fielding that thing as a multi-million-dollar project out to operations centers all around the world this year. I mean, that was like 4 years. And I mean, I know, it takes time. We know that big rollouts do take time, but we're disciplined to kind of stick it through the whole way and work with the teams that do it. And we've learned to do that along the way because that's what we do. We learn, iterate, and evolve always. Back in 2011 when we started, if you would have told me, I would have said you were crazy if you would have told me that I would have been training up a bunch of Intel analysts in Scrum and product ownership and rapidly generating a prototype to start to get better at intelligence as a service and up-domating it to all the way up. I would have thought that was completely bonkers, but that's what we did last month. And we're working to try to figure out how to make that better because world leaders build continually adaptive products. This guy knows what I'm talking about. So that's what we aim to do too. And we aim to make those partnerships. In the early days, this is a TANG project. We put Xbox controllers on submarines to control the photonics mass, and that was cool, and it took a while to do that. But that's just a TANG project, or a lot more than that. We're hearing a lot of things that our sponsors are saying, that our friends are saying when they're coming to us, so we're learning how to do things like strategy development. We're learning how to do things like storytelling, cramming a bunch of engineers, bringing a bunch of sci-fi writers in to brainstorm alongside Aussies to visualize what the submarine concepts of the future ought to look like. We did that. It was crazy, but we did it because we're hearing a need for it. We're hearing a need to create postcards from the future, so we're figuring out ways to do that in a meaningful way. So we're thinking beyond the post-it because we don't want to stop at just the post-it, because if we did that, then what the hell are we doing? We're doing innovation theater, and that sucks. So we're here to partner because we think we can help. And we think that you guys could help us. And we know that if we're not all rowing in the same direction, then what the hell are we doing anyway, right? So we're ready to grab an oar, get in the boat, and kind of get in with you guys. So I encourage you to grab one and come on with us. Cheers.
Wow, okay, that was a lot. Everyone, please stand up. Let's take a 15-second intermission, stretch. All of the presenters, come join me on stage. We're gonna have an amazing conversation. 10 speakers, 50 minutes, one awesome conversation. It's gonna be great, but I need this water over here. Yeah, I do. You have permission to sit down. That was not like a direct order. Yeah.
So, blue one for the
That's
crowd,
fine.
these two for the panel.
All right. All right, Joey, come up here. All right, guys. So, yes, anyone else need a water? All right, that was dazzling. So I'm going to try to lead a conversation that gets all of our speakers engaging. We're going to do some interesting formats here. We're going to mix it up a little bit. Let me start with one question for everyone. How many Simon Sinek fans do we have in the room? I know it's popular. So I want to start with why. So I want to ask each of you. We all know the emotional toll it takes to be pushing these boulders up mountains every day. And so it takes a lot of drive and a lot of motivation to want to be there. So I want to start asking each of you in just a phrase, why do you do what you do? Why do you show up at work every day? And let's start with you, Megan, and we'll just go down the line.
I guess I just look like I want to go first for everything, don't I? Because it's hard and we need to invest in order to make that to make a difference in hard things.
Until we match the persistence and the determination with which we are being aggressed, we will never get the boulder over the mountain. So we have to overcome. We do this because some of us, we have to. And as most of you have said on the wall in the back on those Post-it notes, we do this because the problems that are impossible, that's often our passion.
spent 30 years in the military and decided to come back in after being retired. And I came back in, which was a really difficult decision, some people thought, but really what drives me to come back to work and do this is because I really like our way of life. And I think that our democracy and the way we live as Americans is very important to have, not just for today, but for the future. And we are at serious risk if we don't make change and make it happen.
The mission of national security still matters.
I just pause for a moment and picture mediocrity, and that's frightening.
So I spent 18 years on the operational side, and that time has come to an end. And so I do this for the sailors, for the Marines, and for the common defense. And at the Garden, I do it for the kombucha.
It's my way to change the world.
Because it's up to us to build the future that we want and take care of the people around us.
The DoD is one of the biggest budgets in the world, and basically anything we haven't give a shit about users in the entirety of its existence. So I want to change that.
Yo, yes, and that. That was awesome. Mine's somewhere between give a shit because I believe, and I want to build belief in the folks that are going to be necessary to make it happen.
So I'm gonna pivot to one of our short answer questions now, and I'm gonna start with you, Joey. I think one thing we've heard is that there's sort of an arc or a lifespan for these organizations, and so I wanted to ask, in your view, do you think today AppWorks is surviving, iterating, or scaling? And what have you learned about where you think you are?
I would say we're scaling and iterating is constant for us. And that is because we have airmen coming in each day that are like, hey, I heard about what you're doing. We have companies coming in that are engaging, and we have the resources supporting Top Cover right now with the General Goldfein, General Wilson, Dr. Roper. Those are the people that are saying we're going to put the resources, time, and effort behind us. And we're getting the people, we're getting access to change the way the budget is shaped, and airmen are getting involved, and so are the program offices.
Awesome. Chubbs, how about you? Where do you think Naval X fits in?
So I would say that Naval X is scaling because we do not own the good ideas at Naval X. We take what's already being done out in the fleet, and we are scaling it across to others.
Katie?
For my particular division, because we're so new, we're still iterating and trying to figure out how we can add value. But across the community, I think it's a lot of scaling because they've been doing this for a while, and our job is to help them get bigger.
Greg, let me ask you the question because you're probably the newest of all of us up here. So where do you think JAIC is fitting, and what has it been like to be at that sort of the ramp up stage? Is it lift off?
Well, we are undergoing a tremendous period of growth right now. If you read the Department of Defense AI strategy, the list of things that need to get done is extraordinary. And then there's a part where it says, and the JAIC is the focal point for all this. And I feel like we're coming out of the womb and being like told, hey, if you could just fix all this, that would be great. So that's exciting, and it's an incredible opportunity. There's some parts of what we do that you could imagine we would say, this is finished. Which is to say, we're trying to develop and deliver a lot of AI capabilities around humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. But the goal there, of course, is that the people who we are delivering these capabilities to just sort of get AI capabilities into their normal operating rhythm, and we'll move on to other projects. There are other parts of the JAIC that I think are meant to be a more enduring capability for the entire Department of Defense. And that's really our Joint Common Foundation, which is trying to enable this DevSecOps environment for ML capabilities so that anybody in the Department of Defense can develop machine learning capabilities and get them into the hands of end users in a timely fashion. That's something that I can't really ever imagine would stop being useful. But if somebody comes along with something better, I'd be delighted to be proven wrong.
Great. So I want to turn back to you, Megan, for a second. So we've seen some research that says that the average lifespan of a quote-unquote innovative organization, at least in the private sector, is about 4 years. Usually at some point there's a CEO or a board that wants to pivot and try something new. And so I wanted to ask you, do you think that that's a feature or a bug?
It is a feature. And one of the ways so DDS is about 4 years old, which is part of why I think you're asking me this question. Everyone at DDS is there as a government civilian for 2 years, renewable to 4 years. And so change is a feature. We have to encourage it. As we turn over our personnel, we've actually designed ourselves to force that change because you need it in order to have the level of creativity and output to do these really hard challenges.
Any of you feel differently? Anyone want to offer the counterpoint? Lifespan is, anyone think it's a bug? Let me ask the question. Oh, go for it, Jerry.
If you look at some of the X labs, you look at skunkworks, I think that they've faded out of memory a little bit. But the thing is that you need to have an organization that's always going to be on that edge, forcing that group to change and try something different. I think the branding, the people might change, but that function needs to still exist in some way, shape, or form.
And I think to back that up, the idea is, again, we're doing this for these things to be used, right? And so I think for us, we look at that balance between wanting to be expeditionary, but understanding that has to translate, right? And so sometimes what's interesting about innovation is you start expeditionary, but you end up finding yourself really in the business of service. And that's actually a really good characteristic that you've done it right.
So let me build on this question and maybe ask it a little bit differently. I mean, we have organizations up here that are focused on new ways to do acquisition. There's going to be delivering software. Everyone's talking about culture change. But there's a lot of different groups up here. And of course, there's a lot of really impressive and important organizations that aren't up here. And so I think we're all struggling with this question, is this ecosystem, at this moment, do we need more growth and more diversity? Or is this the point where we need more consolidation and more organization? And so I would ask, I'll pick on you, David. I'll ask you, I mean, as you look out at the diversity of groups up here and you think about what you see in NATO, multiple different countries working on a different aspect of this problem, I mean, do you think this is a time for us to be focusing in, or is this a time for us to continue to be growing out?
Without risking sounding cliche, I think diversity is a huge strength. But the way in which we leverage that takes time to build the trust. And so I think right now what we're facing in terms of the challenges ahead for us, we have a great need to get to intellectual honesty about the challenges we're facing. We're looking at the usurpation of societies and ways of life. And so we have to get down to the brass tacks. And I think as we do that, as we demonstrate that intellectual honesty, we can build more trust. And as we build more trust, then we're willing to question our primacy of learning. The slide I showed a NATO behaving in a way that was, once upon a time, geared toward bias. We have to get back to that in order to make relevant decisions at the speed of relevance, because our adversaries have figured out how to iterate faster. And so our systems behave like we do. They're people, and they're prone to the same errors. So, let's build that trust so that we can question each other and question the status quo.
Beth, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, actually I do. So I really think that there's opportunity in the chaos and in between those places. And we need to really embrace that chaos and not be afraid of it, regardless of budgets and organizations or whatever you're named. DIU used to have an X in it, and we changed. Some would say that's chaos, but it's not chaos. There's opportunity and new places to grow. And it's really being open enough to exploit those when they come available and go forward with that.
Josh, I think we absolutely have to keep spreading out. I think consolidation assumes that we've figured something out. I don't think anybody in this community has figured out how this is going to work and be sustainable long term. So I know that when I'm at work, I don't walk around thinking I'm being innovative and I'm in an innovation organization. I'm just going to work and trying to solve problems every day. So I think getting new ideas to try to solve all of the challenges that are in front of us is where we have to go. There should be dozens of Kessel Runs and all the rest of your organizations, rather than trying to think that we've answered the question already.
That's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to take time to play our first game. So we're going to call this Innovation Mad Libs. Again, this is going to be really rapid fire. I'm going to ask each of you to answer a series of questions with one word, okay? So I'm not going to go with you, Megan, because that'd be unfair. You've gone first twice. I'm going to start with you, because I know you're nimble and ready to go. David, all right. So here we're going to do, there's going to be like 7 of them. Right?
I'm answering all of them? I'm not answering all of them. I'm passing it around.
We're going to go in a loop here, but one word answer starting now. Most misused innovation concept.
Brainstorming.
Failing fast.
Agile.
That counts as one word.
Post-it notes.
Wrong.
What?
Okay.
Is it bad if I say AI?
No, it's good. It's good.
Whiteboarding to death.
Cliches.
Innovation.
Sure, okay. All right. You guys are going to get the hang of the microphone thing. All right, number 2. Most overused Pentagon buzzword.
Bluff.
Innovation.
Trust.
Who's USAID?
Innovation.
That's classified.
Could I see it all like in one slide?
No pictures here.
It's tough. There's so many. Pass.
You can take a pass. That's fine. Okay. We're going to come back to you. It's really cool. All right, Dave.
Now it's really hard to go at the end.
There's no perfect place to be up here. This is a dangerous place. Okay. All right. Most important tech trend shaping national security.
Is it bad if I say AI?
No, it's cool. It's good. It's good.
Continuous delivery.
SaaS ATOs.
Power of the crowd.
Innovation.
I'm going to break the rules since I passed. Great power competition and quantum.
Space race.
And here I'm glad to say AI. Yeah.
Okay.
5G.
Predictive maintenance.
Got it. Okay, here's one. I think this is a fun one. What do your critics get wrong about you? In one word.
That I'm smart?
Literally everything.
Our focus is on transition.
That we're cowboys with no discipline.
That we just want to break the system.
That we can't share.
That we think we want to do anything alone, ever.
That we're not really government.
That we're catching up.
I'm going to copy you that we're catching up.
Yeah. That's profound. That's great. What is the one thing you most want senior leaders to understand about how innovation really happens?
None of us is as smart as all of us.
The ceremonies and all of the things that we do don't actually matter. It's the reasons behind everything. There's meat there.
And going off of that, I think they need to be in the room with us more often to understand that, and that's missing.
That their projected narrative on their appetite for risk sets the stage for the art of the possible.
That taking time to collaborate at the front will save you time in the end.
Focus on outputs, not just inputs.
The difference between a long process and a rigorous process.
Everything can't always be planned.
Our work is not always accomplished at a desk.
Throwing money at a problem actually solves it. You have to solve it from the ground up.
I think Chris Lynch kind of stole our thunder on this one, so you can't say delivery. If you could have one innovation superpower, what would it be?
Nice. Empathy.
Perfect.
User engagement.
Knowing the difference between activity and progress.
I was going to say empathy, so I'll say caffeine.
Resilience.
Unlimited data rights.
Deep understanding.
I'll come back.
I would want to be like Rogue and be able to borrow everybody else's superpowers. Also known as a cross-functional team that works together.
That's right. Nice. That's good. I feel like is anyone from the RL leaders still here? Good. I think this is like a Marvel comic happening here. This is like the innovation superpower team. Okay, this is the last one, and then we're going to go back to some of the short answers. So thank you guys for bearing with us. It's good. I think you really got the hang of it. What is the one adjective that describes the leader who has done the most to protect your innovative organization?
Willingness?
Understanding.
Drive.
Storytellerific.
Patience.
Curious.
Tolerant of complexity.
Confident.
Total sacrifice. Many leaders have failed fighting and being a shield for us.
Embracing risk. Risk embracer.
Absolutely. And I also think, just thinking back to what we heard from Hondo and from Chris, bold, humble, the passion for the mission. It's awesome. Okay, let's talk for a moment about measurement, because I feel like the arrow that we as so often shot at us is about measurement. And I want to ask you about this, Alexis, and specifically if you could share the Million Lives Club, because I think that's so compelling. How does the Innovation Lab define and measure success?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the really critical things is, again, you have to have innovation, you have to be willing to use it, and you have to know how it's doing, right? And so one of the things that we're just as proud of our kill rate of what innovations we stop funding early as we are of what works. And to Josh's point, one of the other things we find is that the narrative around innovation is really interesting, right? You get all of these kind of small human interest stories of this lone entrepreneur who did this or that. And those are great, but actually what that takes away is from the fact that things are already scaling. And so we actually reached out to governments around the world, the Australians, the Brits, the Canadians, and others, and looked across all of our innovation portfolios, and we said, what's really working? And so we came together to actually tackle the narrative around scale. And so what we did is we created the Million Lives Club. Our first cohort is going to be announced in the coming weeks, and that's really looking at what are the innovations, in our case, in our industry, that already are reaching 1 million lives, right, that have 1 million customers. And what's important about the customer part is the fact that it's not okay just for me, Alexis, to say this is a great innovation, right? It has to be what a customer actually wants, what they need, what they're going to use. And what has been amazing is that we have more than 600 applications from around the world of organizations that at least are projecting that they are going to be impacting 1 million lives or more. And so when someone says this is small, one-off, or they say this is pilot, it's up to us to take that narrative, to change it, and to find kind of our coalition of the willing, and we have that around the world to be able to put innovation on the mainstream stage.
I want to ask that question of you, Joey, and I'll ask you again, Chubb, in a second, because you are platforms that are enabling. So how do you measure and find a creative and authentic way to take credit for things you're helping other people do?
I don't want to take credit for what they're doing. Our goal at the end of the day is we have a stories tab on the ideation platform. We have a stories tab on the AppWorks site. We need to tell the story of the airmen that are doing that work on a day-to-day basis. And we want to, the thing that matters at the end of the day is what can we transition for the warfighter? So how many of those projects are going to be funded by the regular Air Force, by the budget planning cycle? Those are the things that we care about. But as we're building to that narrative, we have to tell that story of why companies should care that contracts are happening in 30 days. We need to tell that story of contracting officers that are coming in to learn these how to use an OT. Now, I'm not tracking how they're going back and using that OT, but now they have that knowledge, they can take that back to their shop. So we're tracking how many people we can bring into the ecosystem and educate them.
And for you, what are the Naval X metrics that matter?
So similar to as Joey's saying with AFWERX, we're focused on our sailors and our Marines and our deck plate workforce. And what we're looking at is, do they have access to a place where they can go and collaborate with non-traditional partners? We think we have that space already with our industrial base and with our own warfare centers, but how do they go and work with those people that they don't normally bring in to work with the Department of the Navy, with your startups, your small businesses, with your nonprofits, and with your academia. And while we do have great connections with academia, it's traditionally with their engineering department and someone we're going to bring in to work on that. But we want to work with people that work in design, people that work in entrepreneurship, and just think differently than us.
Great. And I'm going to ask you this next question, Adam. I'm going to turn to you next, Megan, about this tension between culture and counterculture, between innovation at the edge and innovation in the core. And I just think when you think about software, which is ubiquitous in the department, but a lot of waterfall and then some places where DevOps is real. I mean, how do you manage that tension of figuring out how much of your energy is about making sure our group does great software versus thinking about how do I get to that place where the whole Air Force is delivering continuous air power?
Yeah, thanks. I kind of tripped and fell into a change here. So 2 years ago, as part of a small team, there's 5 or 6 of us. We were building product. I had hands-on. I was doing design work, and we were trying to make that work. Fast forward 2 years, and I'm leading an organization of over 200 people. My priorities rapidly shifted out of necessity, right? So now all I care about is the culture within the organization and making sure we're focusing on teaming in the right way. The thing I think is interesting is it's not really a black and white thing between legacy organizations doing waterfall and innovation organizations. Even within our own organization, we have different ideas of what the culture should be going forward around delivery and all these things that we're doing. So I think we're all still figuring out what that mix is. But I would say, I mean, almost my entire focus is figuring out how to get that right mix right organizationally to make things more effective.
I think this is why it's incredibly important for our organizations to be training folks who are going out and pushing the change in the bureaucracy and the space around them. Because if it is just the 50 to 70 people who work at DDS who are pushing change and executing and doing DevOps and saying this is what an agile methodology looks like. No, really, this is what I actually mean. And no, you're abusing story points. Don't do it that way. If it's just me and just our bureaucracy hackers going out and saying those things, it doesn't work. What makes a difference is every time a young soldier, sailor, airman, civilian comes in, we need to teach them, help them be better, help them, empower folks, because when we talk about hiring and empowering the right people, that's not just the people on my team specifically, that's all the people that we touch, all the people who are already employed by the government, all the people who are going to come in the next 5 to 10 years. And we need to create the space for them to be as innovative and boundary pushing as we are today.
Let me ask you, Katie, I mean, how much of your time is spent empowering the early adopters versus trying to change minds?
That's a great question. I do work a lot with the early adopters across the community to try to get them to, first of all, see that they have top-level support from the community writ large and that they're not alone. So connect them with a support group and also learn from them of what are their challenges and where are they hitting obstacles so that we can try to overcome those as a community. And changing minds comes from a lot of those people that they're butting heads against, right? So then I can put on my bureaucratic ODNI hat and then at the more senior level go and talk to them and find out why are they reluctant, what can we do to nudge them in the right direction. So that's why we've been doing the design sprints, for example, as a way to time box what we're doing. There's a nice book on it. We can say Google does this, Google Ventures does this. So anything Google does, people get really excited. And so just kind of leading them a little bit to water. And yes, you like the water, don't you? Oh, this water is making your day go so much better. Well, let's try the next step. And then that in turn gives the people who work for them a little bit more space to do a little bit more good.
All right, it's been a few minutes, so I think it's time for another game. This one will be easier. We're going to start with you, Megan. We're just going to play. We're going to play favorites. Let's make sure she gets the microphone. Okay. So favorites. First one. What is your favorite book, podcast or blog about innovation?
Oh, about innovation.
Yeah, I mean, sort of basically I want the audience to have a list of suggestions of the things that you guys read or consume or the content you like about innovation. So do you have a favorite book or a favorite podcast? Maybe you don't.
Oh, so a podcast on innovation. There is a podcast called, I think, Product Strategy Book Club, and they review other books about product development and product strategy and then talk about it. And it's women from Google and Facebook, and it is an amazing podcast. They don't post all the time, but it's worth listening to their entire back catalog.
That was exactly what I was looking for.
Sir Lawrence Friedman, he may be a knight, but he writes in A Future of War, a history, all of the mistakes and the paradigms of the past that we're encountering again. And I think it leads us to one central truth, and that is that primacy of learning is quite possibly the most dangerous cognitive phenomena to manifest itself in the history of warfare. We have to break through and relearn. And what's interesting is if you look at our beliefs, I bet I tied my shoes the same way I did when I was 2 years old, and you, and you, and you. And so when we're encoded, right, for the first time in a memory, that's the way we operate. But we have to be willing to rewrite that and say, it's different now, the conditions have changed.
Favorite book? Or
Okay,
blog?
so actually, I don't think I have one favorite book or blog. I go for more of the academic journals, really, and it seems like things are constantly changing, and you get a wide breadth of what's happening coming out of the thinkers out of the universities and whatnot. Might be a little bit more boring than a blog, but it's actually quite interesting to see across the world what people are doing, and not just U.S. universities either.
There's this lovely book called Where Good Ideas Come From by Stephen Johnson, maybe? It's excellent. But don't read that book. Read The Dark Forest by Cixin Liu, which is the most amazing science fiction novel. The Dark Forest, Cixin Liu. Change your life.
I recommend Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. And so remember, you're going to think about a dark forest for like the rest of the day because it's that vivid image. That's what this book talks about. So how do you convey a message that sticks in people's minds so they want to act on it? Because that's what we're trying to do here.
Big stick.
So I'd say Loon Shots by Safi Bakal, which is a great book that describes how to actually create a culture of innovation and a system that will last beyond the people that put it in place. And then for a podcast, anything by Masters of Scale with Reid Hoffman.
Bingo.
Yeah. So it's fantastic.
So my favorite book recently is Breaking Bureaucracy, which some of the folks don't know. There's a group of us that get together and share ideas of different ways that we have gotten to lead innovative and foster innovative culture in our organizations. So if you want this or just the Google Doc, first come, first serve. But my second answer would be I'm a big sci-fi paranormal fan, and there's a great book series called The Demon Accords, which has 14 books. So if you're like me, you can kind of keep going, but what's really incredible about it is it deals with not only technology, human capacity, but a lot of the ethics and ethical elements about what you have to think about as we innovate.
Can I call dibs on one of those books? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. That worked out really well. Yeah. This is my new favorite book. Thank you. Thank you. It was a fast read. Adam Grant and his podcast on organizational psychology, on human understanding, I think that has helped me learn a lot about how we can engage people as we hack bureaucracy.
And that's Work-Life, the podcast, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
Awesome.
A little bit more tactical, the two books that I've been using for new product people, well, for that is Sense and Respond by Josh Seiden. I think it's a really good intro into the way we think about products. And the second for new leaders, Making a Manager by Julie Zausch, the VP of Design at Facebook. It's a really good book about being thrust into a leadership position quickly and kind of how to deal with that.
So on the design thinking side, which is a lot of what we think about, obviously, the Kelly brothers, the guys who founded IDEO, did a book called Creative Confidence. It's fantastic. It's like a plain read. It's like super great on that. But the one I want to recommend to you guys beyond that is A More Beautiful Question by a guy called Warren Berger. because it's all about the fact that in the information age, knowledge is kind of knowable if you know how to ask the right questions around it. We've kind of lost that art in a lot of ways, so it gives you some tactical ways to kind of rekindle that.
Okay, next one, and guys, me? Oh, well, I was gonna highlight the Defense Innovation Board members' awesome podcasts, Work Life and Masters of Scale, but I've seen that was taken care of for me, so that was pretty good. Remember, one word, really fast. Let's do the next question is favorite work of science fiction. You can pass. That was a big grimace.
Anne McCaffrey, Dragon Riders of Pern.
1984.
I'll pass.
You already heard it, but just so you know the author's spelling of the name, Cixin space Liu, The Dark Forest. Read this book.
Apparently I'm not nerdy enough for this panel.
The Expanse, both the TV show and the books.
The Cartherian Gambit.
Ender's Game.
I wasn't going to do this today, but my team will call me out if I lie here. I stopped watching Star Wars at the cantina scene, not a science fiction guy.
That hurts my heart, actually, in a lot of ways. I really like Ready Player One. I mean, it's the book, not the movie. Don't watch the movie. Read the book. It's good.
Okay, we're gonna play multiple choice game now, okay? We'll start with you. Actually, that's unfair. We're gonna start with you again. All right, multiple choice. All right, so first question, multiple choice question. Are you waiting for A, the next AI winter, B, the next AI revolution, or C, an actual AI capability?
C. I'm going to jump in. C.
Actual capability?
I'm really excited about the JAIC, but the answer is C.
Okay, waiting for actual capability, David.
D. Quantum's going to wipe it out.
Okay, that counts.
I'm totally in the C column.
Okay.
I'm actually also in the C column. We have a really exciting test coming up in next month, and like that specific capability test, I'm like so freaking excited for.
What he said.
I read too much sci-fi, so I'm going to say A.
We actually have 22 AI and machine learning things going, so I would say AI revolution, B.
C, can we have some of those?
C.
B.
Awesome. Okay, next one, we'll start with you. Is it a frozen middle or is it an execution layer?
Thought there were more choices to the test than two.
This is a hard test.
It's really hard. I'll say the execution layer. I mean, nobody wakes up thinking that they want to do bad stuff.
Same.
That coalition of the willing, B.
Whipped cream topping on top?
Say 10% A, 80% B, 10% unknown.
Okay. This is a super dodge, but that's cool. Okay. All right.
Also execution level, and I hope they are inspired to remember that execute has multiple meanings.
Ditto.
Ooh, cold.
I think the frozen middle is not so frozen as we all might think.
I think the frozen middle is convertible, so it's an area of promise for all of us.
Climate change is real. It's a frozen execution layer that's melting.
Okay, here's an extra multiple choice. Which is the most fun? A, JSIDS, B, PPBE, C, personnel system, or D, DoD 5000?
How about RMF?
RMF.
RMF plus.
I knew I missed one. Okay.
Pass.
None of those. Night court, way more exciting.
Night court, good answer.
God, that's a terrifying multiple choice list, but we're currently in the midst of PPBE, so there you go.
The only acronym I recognize is that one, so.
C, personnel.
I am super proud to not know what a single one of those things are and intend to keep it that way.
That list gave me nightmares, so all of them, but C, that's people.
Same.
I'll go with the crowd, I guess. C, that sounds good because I'm in your campaign.
Great. Burn it down, says Megan. There's your tweet. You don't. No, that's right. Let's go back to just one more of the longer questions because I think this is a really important one, and I'm gonna ask you to work on this one, Greg, and I'm gonna ask you also, Dave, from a tank perspective. We all talk about this great line about, you know, if I'd asked the customer what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? And so you want a car, a faster horse. And so I remember early days conversations with the JAIC, someone saying, you know, asked someone from the execution layer, what do you want AI to do for you? And they're like, God, it'd be amazing if I could automate making my PowerPoint slides. So, you know, at the JAIC, how are you balancing the need to meet real customer needs versus the need to be true to your vision of the future?
Well, I think we view our end users as critical partners in the development process. If your users aren't telling you what they like about your system, what they don't like about your system, you're probably going to ship junk. And so that is the role of the customer in our regards, from our perspective. But the transformative capabilities that we think are on the horizon for AI, some of those are, you know, those needs from a requirements standpoint might come from the user, but like the approaches that we take probably won't come from the end user. So we view them as our critical development partner and also as a generator of requirements. But the determination of which is the right problem to use AI to go after, because it's not the right solution for everything, but it's extremely useful for some things. We believe that we're better suited to do that, at least for right now.
All right, so we do a lot of divergence, a lot of time up front on discovery, both like in the domain, you know, the difference between sympathy and empathy, right? Being like, oh, that sucks, and oh, this sucks, and we're sucking together. So I think that a lot of our weirdness that we bring to bear, like going to play-based preschools in San Francisco to learn about how little humans learn at a core level so you can infuse those design criteria in, you got to smuggle that stuff in a lot of ways. So we're kind of Trojan horsing design thinking in a lot of ways to get to that better question. When it's accepted and trusted that can actually provide some value, then we can actually get to what the thing is that we ought to be designing. So we spent a lot of work up front. I don't know if I answered I kind of forgot the question.
That's cool. That's fine. And does anyone else want to weigh in this? How much are we trying to educate the customer versus listen to the customer? Anyone else want to answer that one?
I'll add a little bit. So part of our method is to actually go get curated problems. And I would say that these days, our customers are actually more articulate in their ability to actually state those problems. They've done a lot of military operations, they understand the need, and they have an appreciation for technology and what we can do. So.
Okay. I found that it takes education to get what we need out of our users. Our users in particular have like Stockholm syndrome of non-delivery, so they don't know what it even means to be able to have a conversation about getting something valuable. So we have to at least like start the conversation about like what is the next conversation we should have now that continuous delivery is a thing. And I'm actually listening to you, so I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay, I think we have just barely enough time for one last speed round if you guys are really fast. But I did really want to ask this question because we all have you here today, and I think it's really important. And that is, from your perspective, given what you do every day, and you're being here surrounded by this community, what is the thing that you most want DEF to tackle in the coming year?
I think that in the coming year, if we can create more moments that matter just like this to galvanize the community, I think that's the right thing. It matters.
I think it already started here, but this community should be about collaboration and not competition. I think there are so many problems to solve and so many great people that can go help solve those challenges that we should all be working together, sharing, and trying to move the needle as like a single entity, as a team going forward, and all the other shit just slows everything down.
Hopper projects becoming a reality for folks that want to move it forward, so we're getting stuff done.
I think just continuing to embrace diversity and add some more secret power and soft power to the mix.
I think continuing to connect not just within the defense entrepreneurs, but the federal entrepreneurs, I think is really powerful.
You guys took what I was going to say. Yes, to all of that.
Yeah, I would trust Josh Marcuse's opinion on this subject more than I would trust my own.
Work to understand not only the creative things that you are doing, but how to work within the system, since the system isn't going to go away.
We need to continue to build trust, and that trust goes across the NATO alliance with our partners and our Partnership for Peace partners, but also understanding that each partner faces different challenge sets. And so trust helps break down the barriers between us, lets us talk in that common operating language.
Collaboration and outreach, because the more full this room is, the better off we are all going to be.
Awesome. Well, let me ask you guys to do two things. One, we laughed a lot on stage, which is a good thing, but I know that there's a moment where each of us is also trying to choke back some tears, because what you guys do every day is really, really hard. So I hope all of you will join me in a big round of applause, not just for this conversation, but for your service. And last, just because I have the mic and I have the power to say this, let me also ask for a standing ovation for Team DEF. Michael, Morgan, everyone that put this together, just amazing.
Fucking killed that.